Mondays with Mayra. Live life forward and share wisdom back. Hi, and welcome to Mondays with Mayra. This is Dr. Mayra Fernandez speaking. And today's theme is going to be about me, because I realize that you know things I like by the people I interview, by the themes I choose, but you don't really know what my life is. So I thought I'd take time and just share some of the highlights of my life. So I was born 83 years ago in the Dominican Republic, which is without doubt the most beautiful island in the world. I know people in Rhode Island think their island is the most beautiful in the world, and other islands who will not be mentioned, they also think so too, and let them. But I'm just giving you my opinion about the island where I was born. And many tourists actually agree with me. So, shortly after I was born, like 3 months to be exact, my parents divorced. They were very much in love. However, they just couldn't make it through because of circumstances. And one day I may just tell you all about those circumstances. But in the meantime, let me tell you, what happened after that. My mother was very independent, and she didn't like the fact that in the culture of the time, and I think in many, many countries, they're still like that. A divorced woman must be very careful about her reputation. And the reputation is very important, not only for her, but for her whole family, cousins, aunts, uncles. So when it, let's put it this way, one of the times that she was visiting with friends and she started talking, and before you knew it, it became dark and she had to walk home in the dark, and people started yapping because what's a divorced woman doing at night, So she didn't like that. She didn't like to be dependent upon her father for her maintenance, though he was a wealthy man. She didn't like that. She wanted to be her own person. And so she got a letter from one of her sisters-in-law say, you can come to New York. There's plenty of jobs here. And you and I can share my apartment and help with the rent. So my mother did. So what she did is she realized she could not bring a baby to New York City. So she left me with an uncle who didn't have any children and was absolutely crazy about me. That didn't work. The scuttlebutt is that the wife wasn't too happy with all the attention he was giving me and not her. So my aunt took me in and loved me. She had actually brought up my father because my grandmother had died in childbirth, and he was only 6 years old at the time, and so she brought him up. So she was very much in love with this new baby girl, and just only had one little bitty dark spot on her, where she forgot to tell me that I was not her daughter. So when my mother was ready to have me come to be with her, that is when I was in school in first grade, my aunt had to tell me that I was not her mother, but I just couldn't quite grasp what she was saying, or want to grasp what she was saying. Showed me a picture of my mom, and she didn't look like my mom. I looked more like my aunt than my mom. And so I didn't pay attention. It took a year to get all the paperwork to come here legally. And so when I was not quite 8 years old, I was in second grade, I was put on an airplane and told I was going home to my mother. Now, as I was telling you, my mother and my aunt look very different. They had different styles of upbringing a child. Everything was different. And it was a shock. It was traumatic. It was traumatic for everybody. It was traumatic for my aunt who had to give me up. It was traumatic for my mother who had this child that refused to accept her. And it was definitely traumatic for me. And coming now to a mother who had a different way of rearing a child, corporal punishment was always menacing. The Dominicans and the Puerto Ricans and the Cubans have different ways of bringing up children. The Cubans, for the most part, at least in the 40s and 50s, thought their children should speak up and tell them what they're thinking. And if they didn't like it, it was okay. And if it was something uproariously funny, they would laugh and clap and intelligent. Oh my God. So Dominicans and a lot of people at that time in the 40s and 50s, the whole idea was that children should be seen and not heard. Now, I don't want the Dominicans and the Cubans to think badly of what I'm saying. It's just what's my experience was that. And as a child, it was a shock that every word I said was not applauded, and that there was the threat of corporal punishment. So I was not happy. Then on top of that, my mother really believed in education, and she didn't want us she didn't believe in education and didn't want me to be roaming the streets of New York between 3 and 6 when she got home from work. And babysitters weren't working either, I mean, for her. Anyway, so she put me in a boarding school. Boarding schools at that time believed greatly in corporal punishment at the drop of a hat. They thought you were thinking the wrong thing. Whammo, they got you. And then on top of that, I had just arrived in the United States. And I had been here, less than 2 months when I went to boarding school. So I arrived at the end of October, and then by January, I was in boarding school. And I had finally gotten to accept my mother's, kind of, sort of, and here I was separated from her in this environment that was very hostile. The school has already closed, so I can safely tell you, this is my dog who finally wants to come up. Say hello to everybody, sweetie. Okay? Okay, I know. You love me. You're crazy about me. So it was really a bad scene for me, and I was always in trouble. That was the only time I felt I was seen, what else can I say? That I was seen, I never thought I was intelligent. I never thought I was good. I never thought anything positive about myself. So at the end of 6th grade, I told my mother, if you sent me to that school again, I will run away. And I meant it, because she knew that I would not speak out of turn. So she sent me to school in Canada, a French school in Canada. And I was really angry. I had to learn the language again. I had just finished 5 years previously learning English, which I learned in three months, because I sure didn't want corporal punishment, because I wasn't allowed in the New Jersey school. I wasn't allowed to speak my language. You got immediately boxed in the ears or slapped on the face. So here in Canada, though, they thought it was great that we were bilingual, those Spanish girls going to New York, from New York, and from other parts of South and Central America. We had the school had a good reputation. So on top of that, we didn't come home. We left in September, didn't come home till Christmas. And then getting used to Canadian food. Do you know they eat potatoes every single day? Boiled potatoes every single day for the main meal. And sometimes, not boiled, they did something else, hash browns or something, for dinner sometimes. And I missed coming home on weekends. Sometimes my mother would go pick me up and bring me home on the weekends. So I was very angry, and I showed it through my behavior. My behavior got worse in the Canadian school because they didn't hit. And I thought, ta-da! I can do whatever I want because I didn't care about the punishment they gave. The punishment they gave is on Friday evening. Instead of playing and having fun with the other girls, I had to go to a classroom and write words, vocabulary words. I just happen to love words. I happen to love speaking words. I love to have to write words. So this was not a punishment. Corporal punishment was a punishment, not writing words. So it was never enough for me to stop behaving the way I was. So I was sent home at the end of 7th grade with a letter from Mother Superior, who was also the principal, and saying that they're going to give me one more chance. Now, my cohort, who was my friend in crime, she was expelled, and I feel very badly about it, but she was really much worse than I was. But I was, competing with her and being bad. So she was expelled, and I returned ready to pick up where I had left off in June. And I met Sister Camille Marie. And Sister Camille Marie was not going to put up with my misbehavior. And I wrote about it in my first published book called Barrio Teacher, because of her and the other teachers that I had consequently. It was what changed me, and also what changed the trajectory of my life. So it's called Sister Fisherwoman. I know you hear the horror stories about nuns, and I could add a few myself, but there are those who save my life. Battered and abused, I arrived at their convent doorstep and give the Sisters of Charity a run for their name. I finished 7th grade with a letter from Mère Marie Juliette, the principal, giving me one more chance next year, just one. Second year sees me with Sister Camille Marie. They all have Marie on their tails. She's a fisherman's daughter, must be 7 feet tall, but I don't dare ask. Bigger than any gang member back in Spanish Harlem. She raises me by the collar and eye to eye instructs me on my future behavior. Little girl, you are very intelligent, she begins. She must be crazy, I think. According to my mother, I'm only intelligent for bad things. According to my former teachers, I'm not as intelligent as my sister, or as good, or as pretty, or as talented. Sister Camille Marie interrupts my thoughts. You are going to come out first in my class. At least I think that's what she said. By this, my feet were dangling. I'm getting vertigo. I don't argue. I never argue with insanity. And what's more, you're going to behave and help me with those two over there. Sonia and Nancy have to behave also. I hold you personally responsible. I am very busy that school year trying to keep Nancy and Sonia out of trouble. No mean task. Today, both of them are pillars of the church. Sonia's son graduates from Georgetown Law School and is now assistant district attorney in Florida. I come out first in my class that year, which set me forth on a great adventure of scholarship and on a tremendous drive to duplicate Sister Camille's efforts in my barrio students who think themselves not as smart, not as good, not as talented as anybody. I meet Sister Camille Marie years later and remind her of this incident. She doesn't even remember it. But she was very proud of the fact that she appeared in my book and that I dedicated the book to her and my other fabulous teachers. And as you recall, Jackie Robinson. So let's go on. I finished high school. I want to go back to Canada to study, but my mother will not let me. And at that time, you did what your mother told you to do. Because we didn't vote at 18, we voted to 21. So we were still considered children who obeyed their parents. So let me tell you quickly. I married at 20, had my first beautiful boy at 21, had a pair of twins at 22. I also decided and got my husband to move to California when I was 25. No, I wasn't. I was 23. Excuse me, I was 23. And at 25, I finished and got my BA here in California at Cal State Fullerton. Then I was able to continue my education. I still had a thirst for that doctorate. I promised myself that I would have 12 children, I would adopt, and I would have a doctorate, and I would become a great writer. Those are the 4 things, actually. And so, unfortunately, though, what happened next was that, again, 2 people who loved each other very much just couldn't quite get marriage to work. So I gave it a try for 20 years, and I divorced. It was a horrible, angry, unexpected divorce. And turning 40 at the same time was not easy. And so those are what were my first 40 years. I did write. I kept writing. I kept studying. I did graduate studies at Cal State Fullerton in French, which was my major as an undergraduate. And then I did graduate work for my education, master's in education from Cal State Long Beach. And then I also studied at LMU, Loyola Marymount University, for a master's in, theology. There, I got the word out, in theology and liturgy. So I still hadn't gotten my doctorate, but I did get my doctorate at age 49. I wanted it at 27. That's how I had programmed it, but it didn't happen that way. Also, during my marriage, I adopted 2 beautiful girls. I adopted 3 great boys. So a total, if you're counting, 11 children. And then afterwards, as a single parent, I adopted a family of 5 children. They were ages 2 to 14. And so if you're counting again, that's 17 altogether. And they have provided me with incredibly gorgeous grandchildren. And they have given me great grandchildren. So I'm a happy happy mom and grandma and great-grandma. And those are the first 40 years of my life. Well, I guess more than 40, because I told you about the adoption and my doctorate from the University of San Francisco. I still have the pictures, and I could have smiled broader than I did to finally, at age 49, have my doctorate. But that was nothing compared to one of my colleagues who at 72 was getting his doctorate from the University of San Francisco at the same year that I was getting mine. So it's just never too late to have your dreams come true, what you've wanted. Just find a different way of doing it. I know you can. I definitely know you can. Because if this traumatized child grew up and was able to do it, to find mentors, to find friends, to find people who love you, to support you. Don't be around people who don't support your dreams. I mean, if you have to, you have to. However, find people that do. And it's not too late. You may have to switch around. For instance, if you are in a wheelchair and there's nothing you can do about that, you can still do other things. Your brain hasn't died. One of my very dear friend's brother had ALS, and he couldn't speak. So he learned to speak with his eyes. There's a certain contraption machine that he could focus on the eyes and spell them out. And what about the couple who are blind and still have a child? And they teach the child how to be with blind parents. So there's so many people around that have done the miraculous. I wouldn't call what I did miraculous. I'm just too pig-headed, too stubborn to give up. I come from a long line of stubborn women who didn't give up to get their wish. So I have this cheat sheet so that I make sure that I did everything that I said I was going to do and say. So, my other dream of getting published there. I had forgotten about this one. I also have traveled a lot. Traveling was one of my joys. I remember, the globes that we used to have in the classroom. I would turn it and go boom like that. I want to go to that country. And I've been to over 60 countries. And I wasn't fabulously rich, but I'd rather not eat steak and then go travel. I'd rather do that. So you have to make your priorities. And traveling is one of mine. And taking my children with me is one of mine. So just make it so that it's possible. Use your own creativity. Creativity is right up there, just waiting for you to grab it, whatever it is that you want. Just don't give up. Figure out a way. Because you are older doesn't mean that you can't. And you need to share that wisdom, how you made it, to other generations that are around you, especially those you love. Share your stories. Your stories when you didn't give up, or your stories when you gave up and how sorry you are that you gave up on it. Maybe they can help you find a new way. These new generations, they're so smart. And maybe they can help you find it. It's okay to learn from them. So I believe I told you all that I wanted to tell you that is on my cheat sheet. And thank you so much for showing up. And we'll see you next week. I will do everything in my power to get you to know about love. Love is coming up next Friday, Valentine's Day. And there are all kinds of loves. And I am working hard on making one of my videos showing you different kinds of love. I've had such a great time just videotaping different people doing different things, and maybe that might give you a couple of ideas. So until then, this is Dr. Mayra Fernandez, and this is a great Monday morning that we spent together, or maybe afternoon, depending on where you're living. And hello, Father Ken over there in Ireland. I'm so glad you were able to tune in, even though it's whatever ungodly time it is in Ireland. So I love you all, and we'll see you next Monday at Mondays with Mayra, unless I can squeeze in another video for Valentine's Day, my gift to you. Until then, goodbye. Mondays with Mayra. Live life forward and share wisdom back.